Gigi?
Gigi, is it time? Is it time, Gigi? Is it time to go read to Charlie? Let's go! I'm ready, Gigi.
Knock, knock, knock. Charlie. Charlie. Knock, knock, knock. It's Patches. How you doing, Charlie? Hey, Charlie. Oh, wait, let me check one thing. Wait. Okay. Your Gigi sometimes forgets. Hey. Wanted to make sure the mic was on. We had technical difficulty earlier. Papa had to come help. Anyway, just want to say, hey. Or I could say, what's up? What's up? Say that to your daddy and your mama. Anyway, just want to say, hey. And I hope you're having a great day. And you had a great week. And you're doing lots of reading. Because that's what we're going to do today. We're going to read today. That's right, Jar Jar. Anyway, without further ado, here is Gigi. Hey, Charlie, how you doing today? I hope you're having a fantastical day. That's right. So today we're going to read a book. But what you're also going to see, let's see. Should I put this in the front? Should I put it in the back? I think this little clip's going to go in front of the whole thing. And I went ahead and took some video. Just little clips of what me and Papa did for the week. Busy. So I kind of let you know what we were up to. We went out to breakfast. It was a really good place. Maybe when you come out here, I'll take you. So it's called Over Easy. Then we went out to Home Depot. Then we went to Walmart. Oh my gosh. We had a busy day that day. Anyway, just wanted to share a little bit of that with you. Also, we're going to read today. I saw your daddy said that you were doing lots of reading. That's great, because reading is important. And Gigi believes reading gives you knowledge. And to me, I've always thought, and your daddy will tell you, knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you grow. That's right. I'm so happy you're a reader, because reading doesn't always come easy to everybody. But if you can read, you can learn anything. You can learn anything, and you can go anywhere. That's right. So I'm really glad that you've been doing lots and lots of reading. That's good. Today, what we're going to do, we're back in our book, Seuss by Seuss, and we are going to read The 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins. Bartholomew Cubbins. So, before I start, here's our week, and we'll start the book. Gotta feed the beast. Let's see, what's gas here? Can't tell. It'll probably take like $75. Before it was like over 100. Crazy numbers. But now it's not so bad. So, feeding the beast, then we'll get on the road again. Was that a good breakfast, honey?
It was delicious.
Over easy. Quick. Dog's favorite place. Can you see it? What are you doing, honey?
Oh. Up for next stop. Well, now it's time to head back home because we got a story to read. Picked up items that Gigi needed. So here we go. Okay. I hope you enjoyed that. Huh? It's kind of fun, huh? A little different. Oh, your daddy can see what your Gigi, your mama and daddy can see what your Gigi and your papa are doing as well. And whoever else wants to join us, who knows who's out there doing this, right? I don't know. Anyway, so here is the book, 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins. So let's see what this book's about, or this story's about. Ready? In the beginning, Bartholomew Cubbins did have 500 hats. He had only one hat. It was an old one that had belonged to his father and his father's father before him. It was probably the oldest and the plainest hat in the whole kingdom of Did, where Bartholomew Cubbins lived. Okay, we're already starting, huh? But Bartholomew liked it especially because of the feather that always pointed straight up in the air. See, there's his hat. And see how the feathers just boop up in the air. Kind of cool. Almost looks like a Robin Hood hat, huh? Robin Hood is Merry Men, huh? Do you know who Robin Hood is? I'm thinking you might know. Well, have your daddy read the book. The kingdom of Did was ruled by King Derwin. His palace stood high on the top of the mountain. From his balcony, he looked down over the houses of all his subjects. First over the spires of the noblemen's castles, across the broad roofs of the rich men's mansions, then over the little houses of the townsfolk, to the huts of the farmers far off in the field. It was a mighty view, and it made King Derwin feel mighty important. Yeah, he felt all full of himself, looking over his great land, huh? Okay, maybe, I don't know, was he a mean king or a good king? I don't know, but anyway. I don't know. Maybe he just liked looking out there. Far off in the fields on the edge of Cranberry Bog stood the hut of the Cubbins family. From the small door, Bartholomew looked across the huts of the farmers, to the houses of the townsfolk, then to the rich men's mansions and the noblemen's castles, up to the great towering palace of the king. It was exactly the same view that the King Derwin saw from his balcony, but Bartholomew saw it backwards. It was a mighty view, but it made Bartholomew Cubbins feel mighty small. See, so where Bartholomew's looking up, the king was looking down. That's kind of interesting, huh? His point of view. That's right. So for the king, it's a mighty long way to fall. For Bartholomew, it's good to keep going up. That's right. And he could do it. Just after sunrise one Saturday morning, Bartholomew started for town. He felt very happy. A pleasant breeze whistled through the feather in his hat. In his right hand he carried a basket of cranberries to sell at the market. He was anxious to sell them quickly and bring the money back home to his parents. He walked faster and faster till he got to the gates of town. The silver sound of trumpets rang through the air. Hoofbeats clattered on the cobbled streets. Clear the way, make way for the king. So here he is going off to town, and here they are saying, off the streets, make way for the king. Huh? See all the horses and the men playing the trumpets? Interesting. All the people rushed for the sidewalks. They drove their carts right up over the curbstones. Bartholomew clutched his basket tighter. Around the corner dashed 50 trumpeters on yellow-robed horses. Behind them on crimson-robed horses came the king's own guard. Hats off to the king, shouted the captain of the king's own guards. On came the king's carriage, white and gold and purple. It rumbled through thunder through the narrow street. It swept past Bartholomew, that suddenly its mighty brakes shrieked. It lurched and then it stopped. The whole procession stood still. Bartholomew could hardly believe what he saw. Through the side of the window carriage, the king himself was staring back, straight back at him. Bartholomew began to tremble. Back up, the king commanded the royal coachman. The royal coachman shouted to the horses. The king's own guard shouted to the crimson-robed horses. The trumpeters shouted to the yellow-robed horses. Very slowly, the whole procession backed down the street until the king's carriage stopped right in front of Bartholomew. Look at that, see? He's having them pull back. I wonder why. Is he after his hat? Huh? See? And the king says, stop! And then the horses had to come back. The king leaned from his carriage window and fixed his eyes directly on Bartholomew Cubbins. Well, well, he demanded. Bartholomew shook with a fright. I ought to say something, he thought to himself, but he could think of nothing to say. Well, demanded the king again, do you or do you not take off your hat before your king? Oh, that's why he was making him stop. Yes, indeed, sire, answered Bartholomew, feeling greatly relieved. I do take off my hat before my king. Then take it off this very instant, commanded the king, more loudly than before. But sire, my hat is off, answered Bartholomew. Such impudence, shouted the king, shaking an angry finger. How dare you stand there and tell me your hat is off? I don't like to say you are wrong, sire, said Bartholomew very politely. But you see my hat is off, and he showed the king the hat is in hand. If that's your hat in your hand, demanded the king, what's that in your head? On my head, gasped Bartholomew. There did seem to be something on his head. He reached up and touched his hat. Or touched a hat. So you see, he's got a hat in his hand right here. The king's saying, hey man, what's the deal? Why are you not taking off your hat? And Bartholomew saying, I did take it off. And Bart said, The face of Bartholomew Cubbins turned very red. It's a hat, sire, but it can't be mine. Someone behind me must have put it on my head. I don't care how it got there, said the king. You take it off. And the king sat back in his carriage. Bartholomew quickly snatched off the hat. He stared at it in astonishment. It was exactly the same as his own hat. The same size, the same color, and exactly the same feather. You know, it goes straight up in the air. By the crown of my fathers, roared the king, again leaning out of the carriage window. Did I or did I not command you to take off your hat? You did, sire. I took it off. I took it off twice. Nonsense! There's a hat still upon your head. Another hat? Again Bartholomew reached up in his hand and touched the hat. Come on, what is the meaning of this? Demanded the king, his face purple with rage. I don't know, sire, answered Bartholomew. It's never happened to me before. The king was now shaking with such fury that the carriage rocked on its wheels and the royal coachman could hardly sit in his seat. Arrest the impudent trickster, shouted the king to the captain of the king's own guards. We will teach him to take off his hat. See? You know, he's got 3 hats. He keeps getting hats on his head when he takes it off. Wonder what that's about. The royal coachman cracked his long whip. The king's carriage swung forward up the street toward the palace. But the captain of the king's own guards leaned down from his big brass saddle and grabbed Bartholomew Cubbins by his shirt. Away flew Bartholomew's basket. The cranberries bounced over the cobblestones and rolled down into the gutter. With a jangling of spurs and a clatter of horseshoes, the captain of Bartholomew sped up the winding street toward the palace. Out of the narrow streets on up the hill, Bartholomew clung to the captain's broad back. On and on they galloped, past the bright gardens of the wealthy merchants, higher and higher up the mountains, on past the walls of the noblemen's castles. See, he's grabbing him right there. Huh? Man, I bet Bartholomew's scared, huh? Flop! The sharp wind whisked off Bartholomew's hat. Flop! Flop! 2 more flew off. Flop! 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 Flew another and another. 4, 5, 6, 7. Bartholomew kept counting as the hats came faster and faster. Lords and ladies stared from the windows of their turrets, wondering what the strange stream of hats could mean. Over the palace drawbridge, they sped through the great gates and onto the courtyard. The captain pulled in his reins. His Majesty waits in the throne room, said a guard, saluting the captain. The throne room! The captain dropped Bartholomew to the ground. I'll certainly hate to be in your shoes, he said, shaking his head sadly. Poor guy. For a moment, Bartholomew was terribly frightened. Still, he thought to himself, the king can do nothing dreadful to punish me, because I have really done nothing wrong. I could only be cowardly to be afraid. That's right, Bartholomew. You stand tall. Bartholomew threw back his shoulders and marched straight ahead into the palace. Follow the black carpet, said the guard at the door. All through the long hallway, Bartholomew could hear the muttering of voices behind heavy doors. He won't take off his hat. He won't take off his hat. What's the deal with the hats? And see, here are all the hats. Every time one flies off, another one comes on. Bloop, 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 bloop. Wow. Bartholomew walked until he stood in the very middle of the throne room. The king, in a long scarlet robe, was waiting on his throne. Beside him stood Sir Alaric, keeper of the king's records. He wore in his belt, instead of a sword, a long silver ruler. Lords and noblemen of the court stood solemn and silent. The king looked down at Bartholomew severely. Young man, I'll give you one more chance. Will you take off your hat for your king? Your Majesty, said Bartholomew as politely as he could. I will, but I'm afraid it won't do any good. And he took off his hat, and it didn't do any good. Another hat sat on Bartholomew's head. He took off hat after hat after hat after hat until he was standing in the middle of a great pile of hats. The lords and noblemen were astonished. They couldn't even speak. Such a thing had never happened in the throne room before. See, Bartholomew is walking up to the throne to see the king. Tick, 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 tick. But say, hey man, what's with the deal with the hats? You keep growing hats. Heaven said, what was this I saw? Heaven, said Sir Ehrlich, keeper of the records, blinking behind his triangular spectacles. He's taken off 45. And there were 3 more down in the town, said the king. And you must add an 87 more that blew off my head as we galloped up the hill, said Bartholomew, trying to be helpful. 135 hats? Most unusual, said Sir Ulrich, writing it down on a long scroll. Come on, come. Come, said the king impatiently. Sir Ulrich, what do you make of all this nonsense? Very serious nonsense, your Majesty, answered Sir Ulrich. I advise you to call in an expert in hats. Excellent, added the king. Hogard, fetch in Sir Snips, maker of hats for all the fine lords. Into the throne room marched the smallest man wearing the tallest hat that Bartholomew had ever seen. It was Sir Snips. Instead of a sword, he wore at his side a large pair of scissors. Look at this boy's hat, commanded the king. Sir Snips looked at Bartholomew Cubbins' hat, sniffed in disgust. Wow. Then he turned to the king and bowed stiffly. Your Majesty, I, Sir Snips, am the maker of hats for all the fine lords. I make hats of gold cloth, fine silks, and gems, and ostrich plumes. You ask me what I think of this hat? Pooh! It is the most ordinary hat I've ever set eyes on. In that case, said the king, It should be very simple for you to take it off. Simple indeed, mumbled Sir Snips hauntingly, and standing on his tiptoes, he pushed his pudgy thumb on Bartholomew's hat and knocked it to the floor. Immediately another appeared on Bartholomew's head. They can't help it. The hats keep coming back. Huh? Now, how long is this story? Are we going to be able to read it all? I don't know, Charlie. Well, let me see. This is a big, long story. Oh, wow. I don't think we're going to be able to read it all. Let me see here. Hold the phone. Oh, this is a long one. Hold the phone. I like to at least read half of it. So, we started at page 47. Yeah, a couple more pages. I didn't think it was this long. Screamed Sir Snip, slipping in the air higher than he was tall. Then he turned and ran shrieking out of the throne room. Dear me, said the king, looking very puzzled. If Snips can't do it, this must be more than an ordinary hat. 136, wrote Sir Illyric, wrinkling his brow. Your Majesty, advise that you call in your wise men. A fine idea, said King. Hold guard. Bring me Nad. Nad knows about everything in my kingdom. In came an old man. He looked at the hat of Bartholomew's head and looked at the pile of hats on the floor. Nad, my wise man, can you take off his hat? Asked the king. Nad shook his head solemnly. No. Then fetch me the father of Nad, commanded the king. He knows about everything in all my kingdom and all the world beyond. In came in an even older man. But when he looked at Bartholomew's hats, the father of Nad merely locked his fingers across his beard and said nothing. He said, I ain't touching that hat. That hat's some kind of magical power or something. I ain't touching it. Because old man Nad's a smart man. Then bring me the father of Nad, ordered the king. He knows about everything in my kingdom and all the world beyond and all the other worlds that may happen to be. Then came the oldest man of them all. But he just looked at Bartholomew and nibbled nervously at the end of his beard. Does this mean there's no one in my kingdom who can take off this boy's hat? Bellowed the king in a terrifying voice. A small voice came up through the balcony window. What's the matter, Uncle Derwin? To Bartholomew it sounded like the voice of a boy. The king stepped out on the balcony and leaned over the marble railing. There's a boy in here, just about your age, the king said. He won't take off his hat. Bartholomew tiptoed up behind the king and looked down. There stood a boy with a big lace collar. A very proud little boy with his nose in the air. It was the Grand Duke Wilford, nephew of the king. You send him down here, said the Grand Duke Wilford. I'll fix him. The king thought for a minute. He pushed back his crown and scratched his head. Well, maybe you can. There is no harm in trying. Take him to the Grand Duke Wilford, commanded the king, and the two of the king's own guards let Bartholomew out of the throne room. See, I guess he thinks he knows it all. He can do anything. And here's little Bartholomew with his red hat. He's going to send him down there. Uh-oh. Well, I think we'll look next time to see what did the nephew do. I didn't know the story was going to be that long. Sorry about that. Anyway, I like this one. This is an interesting one, huh?